Okay, right. So again, the first two statements, they are standard: hash include IOStream and using namespace std. Namespace similar to say a package, or say it is nothing but it contains the collection of different files which you write, or the classes that you write in C++, right? Then these two statements, right, they are function declarations. Now a standard place, right, or a common place, if not standard, to have function declarations in a program, they are just before main, right? This typically is for single page programs which you have, right, is to having all the function declarations before your main. Now what is typically a function declaration? A function declaration contains a few things. First is a return type. What return type specifies is the return type or the data type of the output which we would be getting from this function, right? Then what we have is the name of the function. So in this particular case, sum is the name of the function, right? And then we have two parameters to those functions. Parameters are nothing but the inputs that we provide to the function, right? The two parameters, they are two integers in this particular case. While specifying the parameters, it becomes compulsory for us to provide the data type of the parameters. That is, I am saying int a and int b, right? And what typically a function is, let's say like a machine. So if you provide some input to that machine would give you some output. Now the input to that machine is always defined, and the output, the type of the output of that machine is always defined. And if your machine is working correctly, that means if the logic of your function is correct, it will give you the desired output. If the logic is not correct, it won't give you the desired output, right? So that is how typically we would say what a function is, right? In the same way, I have another function which is to find product of two numbers. It's the name of that function is mul, right? The return type is again integer, and I am having two parameters to it. One is int a, one is int b, right? And typically we would simply multiply the two numbers and we would return. Right. Now, before we go out for main, right, we have the definitions of those functions. I'll write in comment function definitions here. Now function definition is nothing but the actual logic of the function or actual body of your function, right? That is where you write the definition, right? That is where you write the entire logic for your function, right? Now a sum of two numbers, it's simply accepting two parameters. One is a, one is b, both are integers, and it is returning a plus b. Now a plus b, when we add two integers, what we would get is an integer, right? Now this return statement is nothing but something that we are returning from this function, right? So that is what typically a return statement is, or a function definition looks like. In the same way, we have a function to multiply. We have a, we have b again, and I am returning the product of a and b, right? So very simple functions, right? Sum of two numbers. I am very sure again that each one of you has written this hundreds of times, and each one of you can do it hundreds of times, but still, to start, this is good, right? Then let us come to main. Now in my main, what I am doing is I am declaring three variables, x, y and z. Then what I am doing is I am asking the user, right, to enter two numbers. So cout is not asking the users, cout is only printing on the screen, but what is asking the users, or what is taking the input? It is the cin that is taking the input, right? Notice this operator here, right? This operator is a simple two greater than operators, right? So what this thing would do is the two numbers which the users would enter, right? They would be, first number would be input in X and second number would be stored in Y, right? That is typically what is happening. And then I have the third statement, right, in which what I am doing is I am making a function call here, right? And which function am I calling? I am calling the function sum. So I'll just write a comment here, function call, right? Now what internally what happens is, as soon as this function call is encountered during execution of a program, right, whatever the function is returning, right, in this particular case the value of addition of A and B, that would be replacing this function call. So let us say if my input is 10 and 5, so this statement on line number 14, it would typically be evaluated to Z is equal to 15, right, provided X is 10 and Y is 5, right. So keeping this thing in mind is very important, especially when your function calls, they are used directly instead of being used in some, say, simple, say, assignment statements, right. So we'll come to that later, because this thing is very important. Understanding this is very important when the MCQs come into picture, right. And then the next statement that I am having is, I would be printing that sum of X and Y is Z. So how I am doing that? I am having a cout and then my operator, right, and then I am having in inverted commas, I am saying backslash and sum of. Backslash and typically is new line, then space, then sum of, then space, right. Then I am appending to it the value of X, right. Then again I am saying and, so that just for keeping proper formatting, and then I am appending to it value of Y, and then I am saying is Z. So finally, let us say if the user enters 10 and 5 as the values for X and Y, right, the output which we would see on the screen would be sum of 10 and 5 is 15. That's what we would see. In the same way, for multiplication, this is my function call. So this function call, mul of X comma Y, it would be replaced by whatever value would come from that function, would be returned from that function. So it would typically be Z is equal to 50 if my X and Y are 10 and 5. And then the final output which I would be getting is the product of 10 and 5 is 50, right. So keeping this thing in mind, let me compile this first. Okay, and let me run it, right. So it is asking me to input or enter two numbers. I say 10, I give an enter. I say 5, I give an enter, right. So what I get is, I get sum of 10 and 5 is 15 and product of 10 and 5 is 50, right. A very, very simple example, right, and I'm very sure each one of you knows how to do that. Still, having said that, right, please each one of you try and execute this program. I would be sharing these with you, right.